Franklin's Tale. In Brittany, or as it was then called, Armorica, there was a knight enthralled to love, who served his lady with his best in many a toilsome enterprise and quest, suffering much for her ere she was won. She was among the loveliest under sun, and came from kindred of so high a kind he scarce had the temerity of mind to tell her of his longing and distress, but in the end she saw his worthiness, and felt such pity for the pains he suffered, especially for the meek obedience offered, that privately she fell into accord, and took him for her husband and her lord. The lordship husbands have upon their wives, and to enhance the bliss of both their lives, he freely gave his promise as a knight, that he would never darken her delight by exercising his authority against her will or showing jealousy, but would obey in all with simple trust, as any lover of a lady must, save that his sovereignty in name upon her he should preserve, lest it should shame his honor. She thanked him, and with great humility replied, Sir, since you show a courtesy so fair in proffering me so free a rein, God grant there never be betwixt us twain, though through any fault of mine, dispute or strife. Sir, I will be your true and humble wife, accept my truth of heart, or break my breast. Thus they were both in quiet and at rest. For there's one thing, my lords, it's safe to say, lovers must each be ready to obey the other, if they would long keep company. Love will not be constrained by mastery. When mastery comes, the god of love anon stretches his wings, and farewell, he is gone. Love is a thing, as any spirit free. Women by nature long for liberty, and not to be constrained or made a thrall, and so do men, if I may speak for all. Whoever is the most patient under love has the advantage and will rise above the other. Patience is a conquering virtue. The learned say that, if it not desert you, it vanquishes what force can never reach. Why answer back at every angry speech? No, learn forbearance, or, I'll tell you what, you will be taught it, whether you will or not. No one alive, it needs no arguing, but sometimes says or does a wrongful thing. Rage, sickness, influence of some malign, star constellation, temper, woe, or wine, spur us to wrongful words or make us trip. One should not seek revenge for every slip, and temperance from the times must take her schooling in those that are to learn the art of ruling. And so this wise and honorable knight promised forbearance to her, that he might live the more easily, and she, as kind, promised there never would be fault to find in her. Thus, in this humble wise accord, she took a servant when she took a lord. A lord in marriage, in a love renewed by service, lordship set in servitude. In servitude, why no, but far above, since he had both his lady and his love, his lady certainly, his wife no less, to which the law of love will answer yes. So, in the happiness that they had planned, he took his wife home to his native land with joyful ease, and reached his castle there, by Penmarch Point, not far from Finisterre. And there they lived in amity unharried. Who can recount, unless he has been married, the ease, the prosperous joys of man and wife? A year or more they lived their blissful life, until it chanced, the night that I have thus described, and who was called Avaragus of Caer Rud, planned to spend a year or so in Britain. No, not Brittany, to go and seek high deeds of arms and reputation, in honor. That was all his inclination. He stayed 2 years, at least the book says thus. Nor will I pause about Arviragus, and turn to speak of Dorigen, his wife, who loved her husband as her own heart's life. She wept his absence, sighed for him, and pined, as noble wives will do when so inclined. She mourned, lay wakeful, fasted and lamented, strained by a passion that could be contented only by him, and set the world at naught. Her friends, who knew the burden of her thought, brought her such consolations as they might. They preached to her, they told her day and night, "You'll kill yourself for nothing!" Such relief and comfort as is possible to grief. They fuss about to find, and finding press upon her to relative her heaviness. Slow is the process, it is widely known, by which a carver carves his thought in stone, yet cuts at last the figure he intended, and slowly too, thus soothed and thus befriended, her soul received the print of consolation through hope and reason, and her long protestation turned to recovery. She ceased to languish. She couldn't be always suffering such anguish. Besides, Arviragus, as it befell, sent letters to her, saying all was well, and that he shortly would be home again. Only for that her heart had died of pain. Her friends, seeing her grief began to ease, begged her for heaven's sake, and on their knees, to come and roam about with them, and play, and drive her darker fantasies away. And finally she granted their request, and clearly saw it would be for the best. Her husband's castle fronted on the sea, and she would often walk in company, high on the ramparts, wandering at large. Many a ship she saw, and many a barge, sailing such courses as they chose to go, but these made part and parcel of her woe. And she would often say, "Alas for me, is there no ship, so many as I see, to bring me home my lord? For then my heart would find a cure to soothe its bitter smart." At other times she used to sit and think, with eyes cast downward to the water's brink, and then her heart endured 1,000 shocks to see such jagged, black, and grisly rocks, so that she scarce could stand upon her feet. Then she would refuge in some green retreat, lie on a lawn, and look out to sea. With long, cold sighs would murmur piteously, "Eternal God, that by thy providence guidest the world in wise omnipotence, they say of thee that thou hast nothing made in vain, but, Lord, these fiendish rocks are laid in what would rather seem a foul confusion of work than the creation and conclusion of one so perfect. God, the wise and stable, why madest thou thy work unreasonable? These rocks can foster neither man nor bread, nor bird, to north or south, to west or east." All right, let's do that correctly. "Of one so perfect, God the wise and stable, why madest thou thy work unreasonable? These rocks can foster neither man nor beast, nor bird, to north or south, to west or east. They are a menace, unless to my mind, Lord, seest thou not how they destroy mankind? 100,000 bodies dead and rotted have met their death on them, though now forgotten. Thy fairest work, wrecked on a rocky shelf, mankind made in the image of thyself, it seemed that then thou hadst great charity toward mankind. How therefore may it be that thou hast fashioned means as these to harm them, that do no good but injure and alarm them? I know it pleases scholars to protest in argument that all is for the best, though what their reasons are I do not know. But O thou God that madest wind to blow, preserve my husband, that is my petition. I leave the learned to their disquisition. But would to God these rocks so black, so grim, were sunk in hell itself for sake of him. They are enough to kill my heart with fear. Thus she would speak, with many a piteous tear. Her friends could see it gave her no relief to roam the shore, but added to her grief, and so they sought amusement somewhere else. They led her by the waterways and wells, and many another scene of loveliness. They danced, they played backgammon, they played chess, and so, one sunny morning, as they'd planned, they went into a garden near at hand, where they had staged a picnic and supplied victuals enough, and other things besides, and there they lingered out the happy day. It was the morning of the 6th of May, and May had painted with her softest showers a garden full of leafiness and flowers. The hand of man, with such a cunning craft, had decked this garden out in pleach and graft. There never was a garden of such price, unless, indeed, it were in paradise. The scent of flowers, and the freshening sight, would surely have made any heart feel light that ever was born, save under the duress of sickness or a very deep distress. Pleasure and beauty met in every glance. And after dinner they began to dance, and there was singing. Dorigen alone made her continual complaint and moan, for never among the dancers came to view her husband, he that was her lover too. Nevertheless she had to pass the day in hope, and let her sorrows slide away. Now in this dance among the other men, there danced the squire before Dorigen, fresher and jollier in his array, in my opinion, than the month of May. He sang and danced better than any man there is or has been since the world began. He was, what's more, if I could but contrive to picture him, the handsomest man alive, young, strong, and wealthy, mettlesome, discreet, and popular as any you could meet. And shortly, if I am to tell the truth, all unbeknownst to Dorigen, this youth, a lusty squire and servant in the game of Venus, and Aurelius was his name, had loved her best of any for 2 years and longer, so it chanced. But still his fears had never let him bring this matter up. He drank his penance down without cup. He had despaired of her, and dared not say more of his passion than he might convey. In general terms, by saying that he burned with love, but that his love was not returned, on all such themes he fashioned many a phrase, wrote songs, complaints, rondels, virelays, saying his griefs were more than he dared tell. He languished in a fury, did in hell, and he must die, he said, as Echo did for young Narcissus, and the love she hid. But in no other way, as said above, had he the courage to confess his love, save that perhaps from time to time at dances, where youth pays love's observances, his glances, it well may be, would linger on her face, beseechingly, as is the common case. But she was unaware of what he meant. Nevertheless it happened ere they went out of the garden, since he lived near by, and was of good position, standing high in honor, and had known her from of old, they fell in speech, and he at last grew bold, and drew toward the purpose in his hand. Taking his approach, he said, "Madam, by God's green earth and all its treasure, had I imagined it could give you pleasure, that day on which your lord Arviragus went over sea, then I, Aurelius, would have gone too, and never come again. I know the service of my love is vain. My recompense is but a bursting heart."